Hello and welcome to the Listening Post's unboxing channel on YouTube. Today I'm unboxing an absolute legend. A McIntosh MC611 600 watt quad balanced monoblock power amplifier. This astonishing power amplifier delivers 2.4 kilowatts of power before clipping, an astonishing amount of dynamic headroom, capacities beyond anything. It will drive and control any load at any volume in any room. It is astonishing. It's got multiple awards as you would expect, but it's not every day we get to share a piece of this quality, so I'm very proud to get the opportunity today. Firstly, with the very large amplifiers from McIntosh, they're extremely heavy, so the packaging is double boxed, and the extremely heavy items have additional metal banding holding them together. These things are, well, you will see with all of the packaging involved, but McIntosh have added at every step an element of protection of their product, highlighting the pride that they have gone into it. Nevertheless, being heavy and being difficult to move, I might be huffing and puffing by the end of this. So, firstly, the packaging. I'm not going to spin it around like you might see in other videos. It's got model and serial number information on all four corners. The box itself is virtually square, and opening it is pretty straightforward. The first thing is to carefully and slowly remove the steel banding. Careful to make sure that it doesn't spring anywhere or on you. The second element is to get the lid off. Now, this is where, because it's virtually square, one person would find it very difficult to lift this without it torquing, without it sort of locking. So it's always important to get another person to give you a hand. Now at this point we get to see the elaborate additional foam that has been added to ensure that this is protected in transit. There are pieces of massive foam. Look at the size of that. And then at the front and back, additional harder, firmer, soft closed cell foam. There's a massive piece again on the top and at the side. And then the next stage of opening it is quite straightforward but very difficult because of its physical weight. And the easiest is to sort of shuffle it around. So that you can sort of half roll, half drag the inner box from the outer box. Now at this point, the physical size of the amplifier starts to be declared. The outer packaging, of course, has done its job to ensure transit and freight companies aren't going to be able to damage it, no matter how hard it's sort of bounced around. The lid of the inner box shares nothing. There's not even a model. But it does reveal some of the additional packaging that is added in the form of a couple of centimetre thick closed cell foam. There's McIntosh's extremely comprehensive manual. It talks about inputs and outputs, the ability to select between single-ended and balanced inputs, how to control it, how to turn it on and off with triggers, and it alludes to the wiring configuration should you want to use some form of external automation to turn on and off the lights or on and off the amplifier into a standby mode. At the back we've got a good quality, nice and long New Zealand IEC power cord. Then we've got something relatively unusual. there is a plastic cover that is utilised to, if you're using bare wires or you've got something along those lines that you need to protect and stop things from touching, this cover actually sits over the binding post should it be required. There's a couple of screws at the back of the amplifier that you can see can be removed to utilise this. Please, as always, hang around for some photographs, you'll see these close up. There's a second sort of thing, and this is cool. McIntosh logoed key. Now it's actually a little spanner. It has two purposes, the first being for taking the nuts and bolts out of the bottom of the packaging, which you'll see in a moment, and the second is to tighten the binding post so that you can bring it past finger tight should you be using bare wires or spades. Once it's finished with, also makes an excellent keychain. Now, it's at this point we again see just how vast and heavy the amplifier is, and the packaging involved as far as the wooden base that it's bolted into. Getting it off this isn't easy, so it's half walking and then tilting it to a point that you can then get rid of the large underbox. In bringing this back into frame and rolling it carefully onto its top, we see that next stage. It's been bolted into a piece of chipboard with a frame to ensure that it can't move around. It's an extra level of protection that you would kind of expect with these extremely heavy pieces. Removing it again could be used with the little hand tool, but to make it quick and easy, we're going to use a drill. Lifting that part off is really straightforward, and again it highlights the level of detail they've gone into. This base part clips directly into specific parts of the amplifier, again to lock it and ensure that it does not move in freight. Now at this point it's about getting that large plastic bag off, and that's pretty straightforward in the grand scheme of things. The amplifier is obviously very heavy, so it's not easy, but it's again just part of what's required. Now at this point we get to see the amplifier for the first time sort of up close and personal. The last thing to look at is the fact that in a soft bag they've actually put a piece of desiccant or moisture absorption. You can cut it off, just give it a good yank. Now, looking at the amplifier, its design is classic and subtle, but beautiful. All the larger McIntosh amplifiers have front handles to ensure that you can get a good grip of the product when moving it around. It's become an iconic part of McIntosh's design. The massive central single VU meter highlights at a glance that this is a monoblock amplifier, moving away from some of the traditional designs which see two. The central VU meter shows the wattage output all the way up to the 2.4 kilowatts at the point of clipping. There is a power guard light, and below it a power light to illuminate in standby, and beneath that is the ability to turn on in a remote or stay on position with its power selector. There is a centralized McIntosh logo which is illuminated from the back with fibre optics, and then a repeat of its model, the MC611. Again, a reminder that it's a quad balanced design, which is why it's capable of so much more than its rated wattage, doubling and quadrupling its measured output. We have finally the ability to select the lights in the VU meter to an off position, then change the watts or hold depending on how fast you want the VU meter to move. In the hold position, it will highlight peaks and slowly return to zero after no signal has come through, whereas in the watts mode it will beat along nicely following the timing of the music. Leaning it forward, we see some of the classic things that we expect from McIntosh. The first is an oversized input power transformer. For obvious reasons, if you're going to deliver the kind of power associated with these amplifiers, you're going to have to provide the capacitors and transistors with a significant amount of current. So it's done so in a large, oversized input power transformer. There is then McIntosh's signature output power transformer. The high voltage, low current amplification stages that they have are swung into balance with the autoformer output transformer, giving it the colossal amount of wattage and control and part of the sound signature that is McIntosh. In front of these two we have a little bit of information, including total harmonic distortion readings and all of those types of things. At the back there is a basic circuit design to show the inputs and outputs and the flow through the amplifier. We get a hint at this point of the size of its amplification stage and the large heat sinks. They are now logoed with McIntosh on both sides. Turning it around, we get an understanding of its depth. With the front transformer and output stages laid out beautifully. It's got a twin chassis approach as well, with the base of the amplifier offering the ability for certain elements to be separately housed. Turning it around, we see the flexibility of the amplifier and rocking it back. Firstly, the boring bits of an input fuse and traditional IEC power input. And then we've got duplications of binding posts for outputs, showing very clearly positive and negative for both 2, 4 and 8 ohm loads. Beneath those are the screws I alluded to for the cover that can be put on, as well as some information about country of origin and model. Some basic stuff with a serial number and a caution associated with voltage. Above it we see some of the flexibility that this unit provides. Firstly, we've got basic control inputs in the form of power, and then output 1 and 2 to allow it to cascade its control to other devices. If you've got limited triggers on your source components or processing preamp or something like that, you can daisy chain these in and out to other amplifiers so that they all turn on at an appropriate sequence. It's the next series of sockets that actually alludes to some of the features that this unit has. It actually has a balanced out. With its input, it's paralleled via an output to ensure that you could add this to a second amplifier if you chose to, for the purposes of, in some elaborate situation, biamping or triamping your speakers. That balanced out is emulated with a single-ended output, and above it a single-ended and balanced input. These are then selected with the mode switch on the far side, default to unbalanced, flick it over to balanced. Then we have the simple enough power saving, which is the auto standby, which will be enabled or disabled depending on the user preferences. So as I roll this around to have a look, there we have it, McIntosh's MC611 600 watt monoblock power amplifier, unboxed here at the Listening Post in Christchurch, New Zealand. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more, subscribe to our channel.